Hey BookTube, it's Sarah and welcome back to my channel, The Book Bag. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book Freakout tag because it's approximately the middle of the year and I've read over 100 books, so I have lots to talk about. First question is, what is the best book you've read so far in 2021? I think the best book I've read is probably a tie between Know My Name by Chanel Miller and One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. They're both very different books. Know My Name's much deeper and more emotionally affecting and intense. And One Last Stop is a lot cuter and it's a romance, so that's very sweet too. And I really love them both in very different ways, so we're just gonna say it's a tie. Question number 2 is, what is the best sequel that you've read in 2021? I'm gonna have to say Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I just absolutely loved the Six of Crows duology. BookTube was right. They're great. They're wonderful books. And Crooked Kingdom, I think, was potentially even better than Six of Crows, so it's definitely the best sequel for sure that I've read so far. The third question prompt is the new release you haven't read yet but want to. There's a whole bunch of them. I have a couple physical copies at my parents' house that I want to read that I haven't gotten around to yet because they're at my parents' house and not with me. But hopefully that'll change. They can bring them up when they come to visit me later in the month. But I'm going to go with Luck of the Titanic by Stacey Lee and The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. Number 4 is the most anticipated release of the second half of the year. So I'm going to have to go with Redemptor by Jordan Ifueko. I read the first book in the series, Ray Bear, earlier in the year and was honestly so surprised by it. I'm not a huge fantasy person. I'm really picky about them. But I really love the Ray Bear series, and I love the sense of found family and stuff in it, so I'm really excited to see what's next for everyone in that book. Question number 5 is, what was the biggest disappointment of the year? I'm gonna have to say Go the Distance by Jen Kalanita. It's part of the Disney retelling, the Twisted Tales series, and it's centered on Meg from Hercules, and it just really did not do it for me. Meg did not feel strong and sassy or have any sort of good personality the way that she does in the Hercules movie, and it just kind of felt like the author had recycled a whole bunch of lines from the movie to be hey, remember you loved that scene in the movie, wasn't that great? And I was yeah, it was, but you should just take their personalities and make them do new things, not just have them regurgitate the same thing. Meg calls Hercules Wonder Boy 10 billion times in the book, and I was just really disappointed in it. But I mean, kind of hard to live up to Disney movies. 6 is the biggest surprise of the year, and I think I'm gonna go with The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. The sci-fi book, first in its series, it follows a little ship with its motley crew as they go on space adventures. Basically, there is an overarching quest for them, but a lot of it is just their misadventures in space. And I'm not usually a huge sci-fi person, but it was really fun. It reminded me a lot of the TV show Firefly, where it's just a whole bunch of best friends kind of on a ship hanging out and getting into shenanigans, and it also felt very episodic, even though it was one book. So I really enjoyed that. That was really surprising, and I really did enjoy that a lot. So favorite new author can be either debut or new to me. I'm going to go with Morgan Rogers, who wrote Honey Girl. I believe that's her debut book, and I really liked the way that she wrote. It was very poetic and lyrical and beautiful, and I loved the story too. It was such a sweet romance and such a keen insight into academic burnout and the stresses of life after post-secondary. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what else she comes up with, because that one was super good. Number 8 is the newest fictional crush. If you've watched my previous video where I talk about One Last Stop, you'll know the answer to this. It's Jane Sue from One Last Stop, because I've never really had any fictional crushes before, but Jane Sue is so dreamy. Oh my god. Number 9 is my newest favorite character. I'm going to cheat a little bit and say the Crows from Six of Crows, especially Jesper, Inej, and Kaz. They're just so cool and fun and really great, and I just am my god, my poor sweet murder children. Number 10 is a book that made you cry. I don't think there were a ton of books that have made me cry so far this year. I mean, I don't tend to cry at books a lot, but Know My Name by Chanel Miller really got me. her just like candor and like openness about her emotions going through this like sexual assault trial was just absolutely heartbreaking and incredibly emotional. So that one made me cry. Number 11, book that made you happy. Most of them. I feel like a lot of the books I read this year make me happy because I tend not to read too many sad books. But I'm going to say People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, because I'd really been looking forward to reading that one, and it was super fun and fluffy and light and lived up to all my expectations and exceeded them. Number 12 is the most beautiful book you've bought this year or received, and that's going to be The Betrayals by Bridget Collins. She was the author of The Binding, and I managed to get a hold of a first edition, like signed, stained edges copy of her newest book, The Betrayals, which I have not read yet, but I will get to eventually. It's gorgeous, and the hardback is beautiful without the dust jacket too, so beautiful book. And the last question today is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Well, my TBR on Goodreads is like 1,000 books, so lots. I think I've read somewhere around 110 books so far. My goal is 169, so I need to read another like 59 books. But more specifically, I'm trying to think of like books that I've purchased that I should read. Say the final revival of Opal and Nev by Donnie Walton I bought a couple months ago, and I'd really like to read. I have some like classics that I had purchased that I need to read. And I also wanted to like reread some of my books. I think I'd mentioned in my reading journal video, but like Brain on Fire, the library book, Aristotle and Dante, Discover the Secrets of the Universe, Smartest Guys in the Room. Yeah, so I have a lot of reading ahead of me still, but isn't that always the case? So that's all for the tag today. Thanks so much for joining me. Let me know in the comments if you guys have read any of the books I've talked about, or want to read any of the books that I've talked about. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.